So there are some rational problems, rational situations which we can solve using rational equations. So when we talk about rational problems, usually we're talking about some kind of rate problem. For example, velocity is often a rate problem. Here we have a person who can paint a room. Ryan can paint a room in X hours, and Samantha can paint the same room in 1 hour less. So she's faster. Okay, it takes them 1.2 hours to paint the room together. How many hours does it take for Ryan to paint the room by himself? Okay, so we're looking for how many hours. However, we can't just add hours together and say that together they're going to take, if Samantha takes 2 hours and Ryan takes 3 hours, you can't say together it takes 5 hours. It doesn't make sense, okay? Because the rates, we should be able to make them go faster, which is less time. So we wouldn't add the hours together in this case, but we could add the rates, how fast they're working, okay? So we're going to work out a rational expression for the rate, okay? So the rate of painting a room. That's what we want, okay? So we're just going to put some information here. The time for Ryan is X. Okay, the time for Samantha is X plus 1. Now, how do we get the time together would be 1.2 hours. So we can't just say X plus 1 equals 1.2 hours. That doesn't make sense. So we want to be able to add their rates, which means we need to convert time into a rate. Okay, so the rate of painting the room is going to be the number of rooms they can paint in an hour. Okay, so the number of rooms in the number of hours. Okay, so that's going to be our rate. And we can do this as a unit rate, we can do this as a ratio, it doesn't really matter, but this now becomes the rate. So I'm going to say that the rate for Ryan is going to be 1 room in X hours. Okay? And the rate for Samantha is going to be 1 room in X minus 1 hour. Okay, so Samantha was less time, right? So she was minus 1. So she's faster, so this is 1 room, X minus 1 hours. So their rates together, okay, their rates together, we're going to add them together. Rate Ryan plus rate Samantha is going to be 1 room for X hours plus 1 room for X minus 1 hours. And we know how to add. We are allowed to add their rates together. We're allowed to add their speeds together because that will determine how fast they're doing the room together. So we can add this together. Now, we have to remember that this is rooms per hour. We want to know, we have the information as hours per room. Okay, so they can paint 1.2 hours in 1 room. Okay, so I'm just going to write, this is my rate is room per hour. The information that we've been given is 1.2 hours per room. Okay, so how do I make these equivalent? Well, I can just flip this one over. Okay, so I'm going to have 1 over x plus 1 over x minus 1, and that's going to equal 1 room in 1.2 hours. So it's really important to keep track of the units and the rates, because if you can recognize that these rates are just the inverse, the opposites of each other, the upside down rates, the backwards rates of each other, we can just flip them. So here, and please do not flip these, because you cannot flip this because this is not a rational expression, because it's a plus and minus. Remember, rationals are all times and divide. So we can flip the times and divide, we cannot flip the plus. So now we have our equation to solve. I'm going to multiply through by x times x minus 1 So I end up with x minus 1 plus x equals, well, I should multiply by 1.2 as well. Okay, so I'm going to end up with 1.2 here, 1.2 here, and that's going to end up with x squared minus x. Okay, so multiply these brackets here, so 1.2x minus 1.2 plus 1.2x equals x squared minus x. Okay, we're going to make this equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 2.4. So it's going to be x squared minus 3.4x. Okay, so I'm subtracting 1.2, subtracting 1.2 x. I'm going to add 1.2 on both sides. Okay, so there's my quadratic equation. I need to solve this quadratic equation. I suspect it's actually probably factorable, but I'm going to put this into the quadratic formula. So I get 3.4 plus minus square root of 3.4 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Okay, I need my calculator for this one. So 3.4 plus negative 3.4 squared minus 4 times 1.2 all divided by 2. Okay, so I'm getting 3, an answer of 3. Let's see here, just make sure I've done this correctly. Yeah, so my solution is 3x is equal to 3 hours, and the minus version is going to be 0.4 hours. Okay, so let's check our solutions here. So this is claiming that Ryan can paint the room in 3 hours, and then that would make Samantha paint the room in 2 hours, and together they would paint it in 1.2 hours. That's reasonable. Okay. For 0.4, well, I think we're going to have to get rid of that solution, because if Ryan paints the room in 0.4 hours, Samantha would paint the room in negative 0.6 hours, which, well, that's not possible. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, so these then, we need to eliminate that 0.4. Although it's a valid algebraic solution, it is not a valid solution for this particular problem. So Ryan paints the room, one room, in 3 hours.